I'll begin. Uh,
Okay.
so good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I cannot share my screen. Sorry.
Okay, one second, let me see. Can you try again?
Yeah. All right. All right. So, okay. Good evening. Today, I'll be focusing on like the I'll be focusing on how we can improve our focus in multiple tasks. So we know that in our times, our phones have taken over our lives. So if you're being honest, it's even we all suffer from it. So I suffer, everyone suffers, right? So this is in the form of like small dopamine hits. So when you're watching these reels or these short clip videos, so the brain receives passive or cheap dopamine hits. So this tricks your mind into expecting instant gratification and so on, right? So what I believe is that we can improve this by solving puzzles and also playing chess and so many and focusing on game theory as a field in order to improve our focus in various tasks. So, I would like to start with a very simple problem. So, if anyone would like to try to solve this, so these numbers are related to each other. So, uh, how how will what's the pattern such that 5 relates to a certain number? What is that number? So we know that 9 relates to 504, 8 relates to 336, 7 relates to 210, and 6 relates to 120. So subsequently, what would 5 relate to? So if anyone would like to answer or would like to give in ideas.
Yes, Lakshmi, you can answer.
230.
It's not quite 230. So if we look at this, we notice so we would try to see how it relates to each other, right? So we notice that 504 is divisible by 9, right? So we can write this as 9 into 8 into 7, right? So similarly, we can write this as 8 into 7 into 6, right? So this pattern continues throughout the sequence, right? So if you look at 5, for instance, it would be 5 into 4 into 3, right? So that would be how we would approach this. So we can model this as a function, right? So we can define the function f of x such that it can be x, such that it is x into x minus 1 into x minus 2, which is a cubic polynomial, right? So through this rule, we know that f of 5 would be 5 into 4 into 3, which is just 60. So most people would just like not see this pattern, right? So by continuously training and by continuously solving puzzles every day and looking at these sort of numbers, we can develop such patterns which can help us in various aspects of life, right? So now another game which is very useful is chess, right? So we know that the world champion is from India, right? Gukesh. And there was a study done on these people who are at the top level, who are professionals at chess. and they have a lot of focus and great memory power, right? So how is chess used in this? How does chess help, right? So it helps to calculate two or three moves without touching any piece, right? So you anticipate what your opponent is doing, and you also um, you decide your move based on your opponent's plans, right? So this is very helpful. And one link I suggest is Lee Chess, where you can learn the basics of chess. So and this could be used daily in order to help focus and avoid any sort of distractions, right? So now I would want to go to the next sort of field, which is enumerative combinatorics. So this is a very basic problem, and this usually involves casework, right? So it allows you to look at the different paths and strategize based on decision trees of how uh, among various different possibilities, right? So this is a problem. This is just an enlarged 2 by 2 grid, right? So how suppose you are situated at this top left corner, right? How would you get to this? How many different paths, or how many ways can you travel from this top left corner to this bottom right corner? So if anyone would, and the rule is you can only move. So a move consists of just a rightward movement and a downward movement. So you can, and a movement consists. So suppose if there's a particle over here, or if you're over here, so if you're moving to the right, you would move to this square, right to this square, or down to this square, right? And you cannot go back to the same position. So how many different ways are there to travel from this to this? So if anyone would like to give this a try.
Yes, Dildar, you can go ahead.
I have two paths. First path is directly from that point to end point, square end point, not right
Okay, you
side,
want to go
right?
down? Okay, you want to go right and then
Yeah,
down.
one and then
Yeah.
down. This is
Okay.
one path,
Yeah.
okay. And the second thing is from uh, left to right, middle one. That
Yeah.
yes, and then down,
Yes.
and then right, and then down.
Okay.
These two paths. I think so because you are stating that right, only right and down. Yes, rule is
Yes.
using right and
It can appear in any order. So this is very important, right? It can appear in any order. So you can go down first, and then you can go to the right also. So you can take that case also into account.
Okay, Mansi, you can go ahead.
So I can see five patterns. Like first one, we can go directly down, hold
Yeah,
down, then hold right.
yeah,
Then second one is half down, half
yeah,
right,
yeah.
half right, then down
Okay, yeah,
and one.
yeah,
Uh, then we can go to like right,
yes.
half right, hold down, like
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
then right.
yeah,
And what Dildar Bhaiya said, hold right and then hold down.
yeah.
Uh, After that, we can, yes, like from, can you go to top,
Yeah,
half right, down,
yeah,
right, then down.
Yeah.
I guess that's it.
Yeah. So there are actually six cases, right? I think so I'll show you the six cases, right? So this is just a smaller way. So as you said, full right and then full down, or you can half right, half down, half right, half down, or you can have half right, full down, and then half and then to the right, or you can have half down, full to the right, and then down, or you can have half down, half right, half down, and then right, and then you can go full down and full right. So there are six cases. So we can also use solve this using something called decision trees, right? Okay, this is not related to this, but how we could use decision trees is in the following way, right? So suppose you choose R, right, which is right, and then when you choose right, you would then see that then it'll be two scenarios you can have. You can either go right or you can go down, and then if you go down, then again you have right and down. So you can continue listing this, but there's a simpler approach, and we will look into this approach through this example, right? So our previous example was just a 2 by 2 grid, right? What if we have a 5 by 5 grid, right? And we want to move from point A to point B. So instead of moving down, we move up from A to B, and a move consists of either moving up or moving, so either moving up or moving right, right? So this strategy is not feasible for this because it will be a lot of cases and it'll take forever, right? So we notice a fascinating pattern over here, right? So suppose we take a sample path from A to B, right? So let's say from A to B, so we now take into consideration steps, right? How many steps it takes to go from A to go to B. So suppose, so from, let's say we're just doing a simple path, right? This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it'll take 10 steps, right? And we would wonder if this number of steps would remain the same if we choose a different path, for example, right? So suppose we go up and then we go all the way to the right and then up, right? So this is one up, and then you have five to the right, and then you have four up. So one plus four, five up in total, and then five to the right. So we notice that each path has a fixed number of moves, right? And each move consists of five right and five upward movements. So we can model this observation as a sequence of operations, right? So we can say that moving up is R, moving U is um, moving upward is U, right? So we can model this kind of operation and think of it as an how many ways are there to arrange five right and five up in some sort of a string, right? In a like a word sequence. So normally if you would have 10 ways to choose the first word, then is the first letter, and then 9 ways to choose the next letter, and so on. And this is what we know as factorials, right? So this will be 10 factorial, right? But now we know that so R is not distinguishable, which means that the R will remain the same, or the right movement operation is the same. So we are overcounting the number of cases. So we cannot have 10 into 9 into 8 into 7 into 6 into 5. It'll be too much, right? So we divide by 5 factorial both times, because this repeats 5 times and 5 times, right? So the number of ways, so the number of ways in which this arrangement is the same is 5 factorial using this, and then 5 factorial for the upward movement. And this is how we get the answer as 10 factorial by 5 factorial into 5 factorial. And we can simplify this further, but it would be a very huge calculation. Now, this is so we know that even a simple game of tic-tac-toe can have variance to it, right? So I would like to share this game, which I have made in 1 second. Okay, so it works in such a way, right? So you do not know. So these are buttons over here, right? And you click a random button, but you do not know if it will turn into a circle or a cross. We have all played tic-tac-toe, right? So we do not know if it'll turn into a circle or a cross, and you win the game if you have three crosses in a horizontal row, which means this horizontal row. If you have three crosses in this row, or this row, etc., then you win, right? It does not need to be next to each other, but just suppose you have one cross over here, one cross over here, one cross over here, you win the game, right? And if you have three O's which come in a vertical column, right? They do not need to be next to each other, right? So what is so your task is to do it in the least possible moves, right? And each time you press, a computer will be playing against you, which means that it will try to make sure that you do not have three in one horizontal row, three crosses in one horizontal row, or three circles in a vertical column. So, for example, suppose I'll just show you how it would work, right? So, suppose I click on this, right? It assigns me a cross, and now I would again place a cross. It would not give me, and then again I would place over here. But see, the computer decides that I have a circle, because if I put a cross, then I'm very close to achieving my target of having three crosses in a horizontal row. So if I continue this pattern, so suppose I try a random move, right? I won in 20 moves, but is there a and this is an open question. Even I don't know the answer to this. But is there a way we can improve, or what's the lower bound for how we can win this game? Which means that what's the least number of moves in order to win this game? If anyone would like to at least try and place some, or have some idea of where to place, such that we can reduce the number of moves possible. Any inputs, or uh, we can move on?
Yash, I think we can move on. Also,
Okay.
how many more slides are left?
Just like one or two slides left.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, sorry, just one second. Yeah, I'll try to finish it up quick, if that's fine. Okay, so another aspect which can be used to improve focus is game theory, right? Which is a field of mathematics, which is used for strategic decision thinking, right? So key components in this include like players, strategies, and playoffs. So players is pretty obvious, right? You have multiple decision makers, and it's basically a game, right? So you can have multiple players in the game, and the strategy is the set of actions which a player does, or can choose to take. And there are payoffs, which are rewards or outcomes at the end of the game, which can be positive, negative, and neutral, right? So suppose suppose you win, you get 3 points. It's like a typical video game, right? So some common types of games include zero sum games, where like a situation where one player's gain is exactly equal to another player's loss. So in chess, like you have one win, or other player loses, or you can have a draw, right? So the outcome is equal for both, if we look at that. And then we have non-zero sum games, where the outcome can be mutually beneficial, right? So both parties can win or both parties can lose. And then we also have cooperative or non-cooperative. And this field is a very emerging field, and it has real world applications. So in economics, for example, you have monopolies, oligopolies, how there's competitive market positioning, etc., right? Then you have in biology how different species evolve based on survival strategies. And a very interesting is politics. And there's a whole field known as voting theory. So it basically sees how is our democracy truly a democracy, right? So suppose you have three candidates running in an election, right? The first candidate gets 37% of the vote, the second candidate gets 30%, and the third candidate gets 33%, right? A total of 100%. So we have a system where the person with the highest percentage vote will be appointed the position, right? But if you look at it closely, right, the 37 percentage is less than the percentage allocated to the other two candidates, which is a total of I think like 63%, right? So which means that 63% people did not want that candidate to be in the position, right? So this field known as voting theory looks into how we can make our democracy more like a democracy, and how elections can be more just and fair, so that everyone's votes can. And this is where game theory is used, right? So the last instance where game theory is used, like this is just a particular instance is known as stag hunt, right? So suppose you and another person are in the forest or jungle, right? And you need some food. You have two choices, and you must decide without communicating with the other person. So there's no communication before choosing, after choosing, or in between. So there are two choices of hunting, right? So you can either hunt a stag, or you can hunt a hare or a rabbit, which is basically a rabbit, right? So the catch is it is impossible. So the stag is given a higher reward, which in this case you have five, right? And but if you're hunting, you must both the players must choose to cooperate, which means both of you must choose that simultaneously. Otherwise otherwise you would not get any reward, right? Or you would choose like a minor reward, which is completely on your own, and you don't need any coordination with anyone, right? So we can visualize this using something called a payoff matrix, and see that these are the choices for player one, player two, right? It would be obvious that both of them would choose, right? But then this involves like psychology, where the first player would think that the second player would not choose the same as him, right? So he would then the next best option would be 3 and 3, right? So this gives us more insight into human psychology and how we can better make choices. And hence, thank you. There are more links you can go through in order to better improve focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Yash. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone? Okay, so if no one has any questions, then Arsha, would you like to present next?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Hello everyone. My name is Arsha. Before we begin with the presentation, let's just introduce ourselves first, so that we know who we are, and then we begin with a presentation on a very important topic that is really pertinent for all of you, because I understand that you're either in college or you're in grade 12, I believe. So moving on in the future, someday or the other, we will be holding a job in our hands, right? We'll be earning our own money. And throughout that journey, sure, yes, you will have a lot of emotional experiences, you will have a lot of financial wins and losses, but it is also important to understand your rights when the moment you step into a workplace condition. So yeah, I'll just introduce myself first. My name is Arsha. I'm 16 years old. I live in Delhi NCR. And this topic for me is not just something that I would give a random presentation on. It is something that, I've had a real life experiences because I've seen my parents, troubled with all of this. I've seen other people troubled with all of this. So I know that it is a common issue, right? So the topic that we're going to talk about here is your workplace rights. And why is it that I say that I have a personal experience with it? Right, so I'm 16. I've gone to certain internships, and I have realized that, the moment you're a child, everybody teaches you, like, it's okay, isko kuch mat bolo abhi, they're just a child. So you don't really get a very good view of what it is actually like to be in a workplace environment, to be earning amongst people, who would probably seem to you as, condescending people. And you'll be like, ये मुझे कुछ काम करने नहीं देते. So as a child, you don't get to experience that. But the moment you're an adult who steps into a workplace, you are subjected to a lot of situations where you need to think twice and you can't act compulsively, right? So today, like, this presentation is very interactive. It's full of MCQs, and we're going to be in like a simulation. So think of yourself as a character, all right? So this is the only way that we'll get to learn more about your rights and how you should ideally behave in a workplace environment. All right. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, there are various questions in this presentation, like, for example, your manager asks you for your personal phone number, and you're also asked to work 2 extra hours after your shift, but obviously you won't be paid for it. And there are a lot of situations that you will be subjected to, and then you have to make a decision. Right now, if I ask you that, okay, everyone, you all work for me, you are paid 200 rupees an hour. All right, I am asking you to work 2 extra hours of your shift, but I won't be paying you anything. Would all of you be willing to do it, or will you just do it because we have this mindset of boss ko makhan marna hai? Would you do it or would you not do it? No. All right. So I can see um, certain, and we are on the right path, but how do you communicate it properly? That is also something that we're going to learn today, right? So, our agenda today is going to be understanding what is safe to share at work and what is not safe to share, what is normal for people to ask you. And, if you are subjected to something that you're not comfortable with, how do you speak up for it? So let's first talk about your data and your boundaries, because there are certain things that you might feel comfortable to share at work, and there are some things that that are yours to keep. They're your personal memories and memoirs that you'd like to keep to yourself. Because when you're in a workplace, there are certain conditions that you can get yourself into, probably that are pernicious of a kind, that don't really unfold themselves until it's too late. So, what's okay to share with your coworkers? Your LinkedIn profile, because obviously, often that's what you get your jobs from. So, how many of you here have LinkedIn profiles? Yeah, see, so LinkedIn is very important. You can't possibly get a job and get people to know you professionally unless and until you share your LinkedIn profile with them. So that is completely fine for you to share with other people. Your work only contact number, because obviously your work email and documents relevant to your role. But obviously you won't be sharing your mom's Facebook account where she posts pictures of your childhood, because you don't want your coworkers to see that, right? So obviously you keep certain things of your personal life to yourself, and certain things of your professional life to yourself, right? So don't, you are not forced to share your personal phone number. You're not, obviously you can give your home address sometimes, because in case of an emergency, they have to contact your nearest family members, and in that case you can also send your emergency contacts to your human resources manager in your company. And then you won't be obviously sharing anything personal, like, obviously your bank account number, nothing like that. Okay, so how do you make sure that there are certain things that I can share with my coworkers and certain things that are not? So a tip is to ask yourself, would I be okay if everyone could see this? And if you do not hold back, then it is fine for you to share it with your coworkers. And even you feel like, can I, should I not, you can always check with your HR or your supervisor before sharing any sensitive information. Now, this is one scenario. um, you have been invited for lunch. You have been invited. So you've been invited for lunch by one of your coworkers, and you have four options here. Either you accept and join to make friends, or B, you politely decline if you feel uncomfortable, C, you ignore and walk away, or D, you make a rude comment. It is more than one answer is completely fine. Like, I want to know your opinion on this.
Fatima, could you mute yourself?
Yes.
I would accept and join them to make friends, and also because I am going to work with them and it's my first day, so I would like to connect with them uh, outside from the workplace.
Yeah, and that's a correct answer, because when you're in a workplace condition, it is very important for you to network, because that is how you move up the ladder, up the corporate ladder, right? Or B, if you just feel like, I have my social battery has completely drained, I do not want to talk to anybody, I'm already having a bad day, then option B is also completely fine. You politely decline, you just don't call them something bad, right? And then you don't ignore and walk away, because you also have to maintain a certain image. So yes, A and B is completely okay, and they're completely right choices, because while it is important to network, it is also important that you set certain boundaries, right? Boundaries is a keyword that we will be focusing throughout this presentation, because it is a different thing to, Moscow, Makanmana, or trying to mingle with your coworkers, and it is a completely different thing to genuinely shrink yourself as an individual, right? So we will be learning how to do that, because oftentimes what happens is people come under the pressure key, I need to ensure that I have a good image with my coworkers and that my boss likes me, to an extent that we often forget that मेरी भी personality है, I shouldn't dim myself down, I should also be very conscious of my own likes and dislikes, right? So if you feel like, I don't want to talk to anybody, B is completely fine. If you want to go ahead and network, A is fine. Let's move on to scenario 2. Somebody wants you to share your personal number for a WhatsApp group. A, you give your personal number immediately. B, you ask if a work only contact can be used. C, you politely refuse and explain your privacy concerns. And D, you ignore the request without responding. What's your move? Again, more than one answer is completely fine. All right, so some say B, which is ask if a work only contact can be used. Absolutely, because like I said, that it's not completely necessary that you need to share your personal contact number. B and C is also completely right. That's what I would do. Like, personally, how I would do is that I would say B, because I don't like to give my personal contact numbers immediately. Yes, I gave it to my friends, but I don't give it to like my my school teachers or anyone else. So in that case, I give my mother's phone number, because I don't have a workplace number yet, and things like that. So yeah, B and C is completely fine, because if you are sharing your personal phone number, it can blur the important boundaries between your workplace and your your personal life. You want to keep that healthy boundary in between, and it is perfectly okay for you to offer a work only contact number instead, or you can politely decline. Now, let's start recognizing a few red flags. Now, this is completely based on the behavior, and this is a part that I would personally like to say that, if you're a female in a workplace, this is something that you should absolutely focus on. Now, unpaid overtime, this is completely not legal. I wouldn't say like I'm studying the law because I want to be a lawyer in the future, and I keep reading certain articles that show up with is it allowed, is it not allowed, because I have this hyperfixation on the gig economy right now. I keep learning about how these people are often not paid for the amount of hours they work. So yes, according to the law itself, if you look at the BNSS, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita today, it is not legal for you to work overtime unpaid, unless and until you have to read through. See, whenever you get a job, they give you a contract, right? They give you a contract of all of your rights and your duties in a job. So they, if they don't mention that you will be forced to work, or you will be asked to work beyond your hours, general hours, then maybe you have to check it out with the lawyer. Second, if there are any uncomfortable messages, or if somebody is putting you in an uncomfortable situation, sure, yes, this is subjected to a lot of male workers too. But for all of the females here, please be very, very, very aware. The HR exists in companies for a reason. Please voice it out. See, there's a saying in the Indian justice system that justice cannot be served unless and until you actually voice it out. Somebody is sending you uncomfortable images, somebody is sending you inappropriate messages that you are not comfortable with, either it is from a supervisor or a colleague or your boss's boss, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you, beyond a worker, are an individual with dignity in the workplace, and please voice it out. It doesn't matter, you have to stand up for yourself. um, and trust me, this will happen throughout your career, especially for women. If you really do not voice it out, people will actually take make fun of it, uska advantage lenge bahut zyada. So you actually have to stand your ground. Now when it comes to being told to stay quiet, absolutely not. आपको कोई issue है आपके साथ किसी को, या if somebody is asking you to keep a secret which is not appropriate, do not keep it, do not stay quiet, because the moment you stay quiet, you put yourself in a more dangerous ditch than you were in before. Next, tasks outside your role. You want to do it, you're genuinely interested in it, go ahead. But if your boss is asking you to bring coffee for him or whatever, please voice it out that I didn't go to school or college, and my parents didn't pay my school fees for you to bring my for me to bring your coffee. So you actually have to have enough self respect for that, right? So these fatuous errands that mostly people send you off to because they want to overpower you, stand up to that. It might be scary before at first, but the more you keep ignoring it, the more you're like, chalo kar hi lete hain, coffee to lani hai, kya hai, ho jayega. The more it happens, the more people take advantage of that. So these are certain red flags that you should look out for. So this brings us to scenario 3. Your boss yells at you publicly. Now, what is your response? You stay silent and you accept it. B, you calmly ask for a private conversation later. C, you yell back. Or D, you quit immediately. What do you do? Only one
Arsha,
correct.
sorry, how many slides are left?
1 second. 8 more slides.
Uh, could you go through it a bit fast because two more people are left after you?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I get the answer B, and this is the only correct answer there is. Why can't you stay silent and accept it? Because, see, in legal terms, there's something called defamation, right? You cannot let somebody to, um, verbally harass you like that in a workplace. There are certain conversations, not everything has to be a public conversation. Some things can just be done privately. So, yes, you maintain your calm, you don't yell back at them, you don't argue with them. You're like, can I have a conversation privately later on so that I can actually understand where I went wrong? Because at the end of the day, we're all humans. Everybody loses their cool, but either way, it should be in certain boundaries. So you ask them that was it something about my workplace performance, was it something that you think I did wrong? So you actually have this way, when you say that let's talk privately, you're doing two things. You are first of all validating their feelings about how they feel, why did they exactly yell at you, and number two, you pull the power back to yourself. That's how corporate politics works, right? You actually have to make sure that yes, go ahead, scream at me, maybe I did something wrong, but also have the power to tell you that yes, I was not uncomfortable with this, I don't want you yelling like at me in front of 10 different people. Yeah, and this is how you handle harassment at the workplace, because if there's actually something constructive your boss wants to give you, they have to tell you privately. It's not everybody's conversation to be included in. Scenario 4, we talked about this: unpaid extra hours. What do you do? Agree to avoid conflict, ask if extra hours will be paid or compensated, or refuse to and explain your limits. And D, do it but complain to co-workers. B. All right. So ask if extra hours will be paid and compensated. And this is actually a very intelligent thing to do, because, yes, maybe, there are certain things that you need to do in a workplace environment to move ahead, to, come in the eyes of your seniors, right? So, yes, maybe you'll work, but then you'll have to ask them if it's paid or compensated, because honestly, for the kind of individual I am, I'm not working for somebody for free. Okay. We move on to the next part. You have a voice. This is the most important part of this conversation, because this entire PPT goes in vain if none of us voice it out. Somebody is sending you anything inappropriate, somebody is saying anything inappropriate to you, you don't feel uncomfortable in a workplace environment, you're not fine with something, you have to voice it out. Nobody is going to do anything for you if you don't complain about it. Complain in this scenario is not something bad. It is how you bring your power back to yourself. You have to be put yourself at that pedestal of dignity, where you say that ये मेरे लिए सही नहीं है, इन्होंने ये सही नहीं किया, मैं तो चलाऊंगी, जो भी आपको करना आप कर लो. This is that kind of attitude that you have to have, not to the point that you break yourself down over this, but to the point that you show people that you have dignity for yourself. If something feels wrong, you name it. You tell the HR the time, date, whenever it happened. There are often companies have these communities called POSCO that help with sexual harassment issues, especially for women. So this is something that you need to know. Then you have tell your trusted adult. Well, this is wrong. You have no parent in a workplace environment, but yes, tell your supervisor, your co-worker who you trust. All right. Or yes, you talk to your HR or your manager, and you keep records of everything. One very important thing that I think anyone in the legal field will ever tell you is that you always have to keep something in written. For example, if somebody is asking you to work overtime, you send them an email, right? Yes, sure, I understand the reasons why I need to work, or like extra, and yes, this is based, this is accepted considering the fact that I will be paid accordingly. Sending a simple email like that ensures that if you do get like, god forbid, stuck in some litigation loophole, there is almost every time some evidence to back you up. All right. So keep a record of everything, every message your boss sends you, every email, every note. If somebody is sending you anything inappropriate, screenshot it, send it to an HR manager. That's how it works. And again, yes, with all of this, you also have certain rights and responsibilities. Your right is that you get fair pay for all of the hours you work, a safe and respectful environment, and a workplace environment that actually protects your personal data. While your responsibilities is that you're a reliable worker. So yes, this is very important. Exercising your rights does not make you difficult; it makes you informed. And meeting your responsibilities builds trust with your team. So it all goes hand in hand at the end of the day, right? So yeah, I'd just like to end with the note that your data belongs with you. You have to trust your instincts, and rights make you better. You have to voice it out. Be like, it doesn't matter if somebody calls you like, you bahut bolti hai ye, like, this is the kind of feedback I get from my friends, like, you speak a lot, you fight a lot. It's fine, because it doesn't only happen in a workplace environment, it happens at school too. Like, the moment, like, as a girl, what I have experienced is that the moment you know what you want and you know how to get it, people often say, "Yaar, tu chup rahe," you know, things like that. You're not supposed to talk so much. You're so talkative. You're so bossy. So you have to tell them that this is what I'm like. This is what I'm going to be like. You have to trust yourself. You have to show yourself that dignity, right? And yeah, whenever you begin your first job, talk to anyone, find out who handles all the complaints and grievances at your workplace before you meet them. So just letting them know that if I face any problems, I'll be there. I'll send you a text message or something like that. So it builds trust, and it also makes sure that you're a very compliant person. And yeah, that's it. That's where my presentation ends. I hope all of you like it. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Arsha. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so since no one has any questions, we'll move on to the next presentation. Um, Ayaan, are you there? Do you want to present next?
Yeah.
Okay, you can screen share.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'll start. Good morning, everyone. So today I'll talk about neuroscience and the fascinating field of neuroscience. I will examine the human brain functions, how our brain influences our thoughts, how our nervous system works, and how this allows us to interact with people around us. So before going into the parts of the brain and how the brain works, I'll just give a short introduction on the nervous system specifically. So the nervous system is consists of two parts. So then there's the central and peripheral nervous system, which is what's seen here in the image. So these two parts of the nervous system have different functions. The brain and the spinal cord is the central nervous system. So this creates the signals that will travel across the brain. For example, moving your arms when you're running, all that is controlled primarily by the brain. And the peripheral nervous system will send those signals to your arms, your legs, and your different limbs around your body. So then that will allow for motion to occur. So do you understand the image? Okay. Okay, so I'll begin by examining like the four major parts of the brain. So there's the frontal lobe, there's the parietal lobe, there's the temporal lobe, and then there's the occipital lobe. So the frontal lobe is primarily responsible for cognitive functions, including reasoning, planning, thinking, and even problem solving. The parietal lobe is mainly sensory information, touch, temperature, and spatial awareness. So it allows us to understand the position of our bodies at a specific point in time. The temporal lobe is really important in terms of hearing and to understand languages as well. And the occipital lobe is mainly for vision and to see colors, for example. So here are some key facts about the brain. It weighs around 1.4 kilograms. It consists of billions of neurons, which are tiny brain cells, which is what was seen here. This is a neuron. So these neurons mainly are present within the brain and the spinal cord, and that's what allows the electrical impulses to travel across the body. So the left and right side of the brain are independent from one another. They control different aspects of thinking and cognitive function. However, they stay interconnected. And the outside layer of the brain is known as the cerebral cortex. So in terms of how the brain helps to control emotions, our emotional states and stress levels have a lot of impact on our stress, brain function, concentration, and overall cognitive performance. We often try to copy or feel other people's emotions. That's how we empathize with others, and our brain helps us to do that. And it's extremely important for us to get our 8 hours of sleep, as it also helps our brain process emotional memories. So it's really important to get a good night's rest, especially after extremely stressful situations. So I'll now examine how the brain makes decisions. So every day we make countless choices, ranging from simple routine actions to everyday judgments. These decisions are mainly influenced by the interaction of the different regions within our brain. This contributes to emotional evaluation and also to control our own behaviors. So the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of our brain, helps you stop and think before acting. And this part of the brain also keeps developing into adulthood. Dopamine is a chemical known as a hormone, which will make rewards feel good. That's why you often feel good trying to do your hobbies when you play sports, and that's all due to dopamine. The amygdala helps you react with emotions. The frontal lobe helps you think carefully. And being tired or stressed can impact these brain regions and can lead to you making quick choices or thinking it through. So I'll talk mainly about mental health now. So mental health is extremely important part of your overall health. Many young people experience mental health challenges. There are various conditions a person can have like ADHD, anxiety, depression, and even autism. So this is mainly due to the brain working in a different way from normal individuals. ADHD can affect attention and focus. Anxiety can make the brain feel more alert. Depression affects mood and energy, making you feel have a constant feeling of sadness. And autism means the brain processes information differently. And this means that everyone's brain is unique in its own way. So I'll go through two of the most common neurological conditions. There's Alzheimer's and there's dementia. You may have heard, it's extremely common. You probably would have heard it before. So Alzheimer's have over 10 million cases globally. So the brain cells or the neurons, which I explained before, they basically get entangled with one another and they get damaged by plaques. And that's the main cause of dementia worldwide. And as you age and get older, the chance of gaining Alzheimer's, increase exponentially. This causes symptoms like short-term memory loss, and this leads to eventual like extreme confusion and dependence on others. And your speech and recognition skills decline as well. And this is why people with Alzheimer's often need specific care. They need a structured routine, reminders, and emotional support. Dementia is extremely similar condition. However, it's a progressive brain function decline. It mainly affects memory, which is why you often hear, people with dementia, they have trouble, remembering people and, certain events in their life. Their personality and mood can also change over time. And and they also need specific care, safe environment, and patience as well. Thank you. Did you understand this?
Thank you, Ayan. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, Dildar, yeah, you can
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. I want to know more about the dementia and or that last one, Alzheimer. Alzheimer. Can you
Okay,
please
yeah,
repeat again?
I'll reshare my screen. Definitely. Just give me a second. Um, yeah, okay. So Alzheimer's and dementia are what is known. So the main term which is used to describe this is neurodegenerative diseases. So neurodegenerative means that the neurons present within our brain, which was like in the this slide. So these are the nerve cells, and they're also known as neurons. So this is basically, causing the impulses to form, allows us to like move our limbs, to think, to process emotions as well. And they're present mainly in our brain and our spinal cord. So certain factors can result in these neurons like degenerating in some way, they get damaged, and it can cause like a variety of symptoms. So Alzheimer's is caused when the brain cells are damaged by plaques and tangles. So, you must have heard Alzheimer's and dementia is extremely common in older people. And, older people, their brains start degenerating slightly and they have a higher risk of these diseases. So Alzheimer's will lead to confusion, dependence on others. They will start to have short-term memory loss as well. Their emotions will change. They will act slightly differently. They'll be more irritable. And this is why people with these disorders need constant care. Dementia, on the other hand, is a progressive brain function decline. It affects memory primarily. People will forget people in their life, like they'll forget their own family, certain events that were important to them. They'll start to misremember stuff, and they will also find it difficult to talk with people. Language processing and even daily tasks can become extremely difficult for them, as their brain is not working really well, and their personality and mood will change over time. So people with these diseases need a lot of constant care from their family or specific doctors as well, which are present, which is why it's extremely important to raise awareness about this, especially when it's extremely common in older individuals. Yeah. So do you understand now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ayan. Okay, if no one has any questions, then Josh, do you want to present now?
Yeah. I'm Yash. So even my presentation will be on neurodegenerative and neuromuscular diseases. So this is very personal for me because my grandmother has Parkinson's, which is a neurodegenerative disease. So I really want to spread awareness about these diseases, which are not very easy to detect, as well as they really don't have a cure. Okay. So basically, so first I'm going to talk about Alzheimer's and dementia, or which is already mentioned. So obviously it affects memory and learning. Sorry. Mm, Okay. So there are three types of memory. There's sensory memory. Like it's a very like for a fraction of a second you remember something and then it leaves your mind. Working memory, this is the one like for like a small period of time, like maybe a minute, or like you just remember like just something that happened in the moment and then you forget it. Now, long-term memory is when it gets consolidated, means like the memory plays over and over in your sleep. So that is long-term memory. This is potentially unlimited. The, the fact is that memory, every time you recall a memory or you think of it again, it changes. Like your perspective on the memory changes. Okay, so now I just want to show you how the working memory works. So working memory, you people will obviously have normal because a normal working memory, because like these diseases obviously only affect like the older people. But another disease that affects working memory is ADHD. So people they forget things very often. So like I'm gonna keep this for 20 seconds. Just in the chat, like write all the objects. Okay, so now in the in the chat, just write how many ever you remember. So like it would be around at least like 7 to 9. I'll move on. Um, so now Alzheimer's, obviously, it's a neurodegenerative disease, which means it is there's degeneration of neurons, like there's killing of the neurons, which means plaques and proteins which are toxic, they get clumped together and they block cells from communicating, and this slowly kills them. and the brain size will shrink, and first it will start with like short-term memory loss, and then it will progressively get worse, like the symptoms. Uh, yeah. So dementia is an umbrella term. So like the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia, Alzheimer's is a disease. Dementia is a syndrome, which means it's a group of diseases, and it's like syndrome is basically a group of symptoms. Like so, basically, Alzheimer's will only mean the short-term memory the short-term memory loss, and decision making is uh, decision making is also affected. Dementia, there are various other reasons for dementia, but Alzheimer's is the main reason for dementia. So Alzheimer's accounts for 80% of dementia cases. There are other reasons why dementia can happen. Other symptoms of dementia include hallucinations and muscle stiffness. So there is kind of a difference between these two. Okay, so now the early symptoms would be like to detect these. They in older people they could be mistaken for like just aging, but this is very different from aging. It does not just happen, like it is a disease. So obviously, memory loss, frequently remembering. So this is kind of like working memory and episodic memory. Episodic memory means specific memory is lost. And difficulty with remembering familiar tasks. This is also affected. Confusion with time and places. Again, specific things. Language and communication. Poor judgment, decision making, as I said, and changes in mood and personality. So these are early symptoms which are very important to detect. So how daily life can be made easier for these kind of people, with people dealing with these diseases. So you should set like a simple routine because they don't have to remember much, and it's quite repetitive. So there's not much to remember. Keeping the environment quiet and distraction free keeps their brain calm. So this is another innovative way. Place labels or pictures on cabinets, which means like they can associate something with a color, which makes it makes the learning and the memory process easier. And communication also, you need to work on that. Like talk with a soft and calm voice, otherwise they get agitated. And also visual signals means use your hands and like communicate more visually and engage with low stress activities again to keep them calm and like yeah. Because people with this disease, it's quite the brain, they get agitated and like restless a lot. Now, how to prevent? So, preventive measures, like obviously, so a few diseases that could lead to these is high blood pressure, diabetes, and cholesterol. Sleep is very important to clear out the toxic proteins, and a brain healthy diet is also very healthy. Obviously, eating very healthy food, rich in vegetables, green vegetables, obviously, and keep the brain engaged with like challenges, like learning new skills, and also prevent head injuries. Head injuries and trauma are very a big reason why dementia occurs. Okay, so a few facts. Again, just talking about how Alzheimer's, like it has a very global impact, and a few of these cases are not even diagnosed. A lot of people die from this because there's really no cure. So it's very important to spread awareness about this and like get help before it escalates. Now I'm gonna go to Parkinson's and NMD stands for neuromuscular diseases. Okay. So now the basic, obviously a neuron, everyone knows what a neuron is. It's the fundamental unit of the brain. It's the brain cell. So there are three types of neurons: sensory neurons, motor neurons, interneurons. Sensory, obviously, sen- quite self-explanatory, and motor neurons also they connect the brain to the muscle. So they will perform the muscular movement, and they'll send the signal for that. Interneurons basically they communicate between sensory and motor neurons. Now, so how is the signal transmitted between two neurons or even between like a neuron and a muscle or a receptor? So basically, between a sensory neuron, to get the signal, you get it from a receptor, and for a motor neuron to pass the signal, it's from the motor neuron to the muscle. So, neurotransmitters, these are chemicals, so they can either send the signal or they can inhibit the signal from going. So there are few acetyl, choline, glutamate, GABA, dopamine. Obviously, it's the main reason. Like the neurons that produce, I'll talk about this later. The neurons that produce dopamine are the ones that are killed, and this is why Parkinson's is caused. So Parkinson's again, it's a progressive disease. The symptoms escalating. Dopamine produced neurons are affected, and the substantia. So that is affected. Substantia nigra part of the brain, it's affected. So signals, how are they? So they are bit, from one neuron to the other neuron, they are passed chemically through these neurotransmitters and through the length of the neuron. So through the length of the neuron from the cell body to the axon terminal, it's passed electrically through depolarization and polar repolarization. Uh, so now the reflex arc. So this part of the this pathway is basically affected in neuromuscular diseases. So what happens? Obviously, I think you may have studied this. The receptor will, so if it sends something hot, like very hot, the receptor will send this through the sensory neuron to the brain. So think of the brain as like a chip, like on your phone or on your laptop, the processor chip inside it. That's the brain. It will process these signals and it will send it back through the motor neuron to the muscle, which then produces a movement of removing your hand from the hot body. So these are few parts of the brain that are responsible. Receiving information, sensory neurons, receptors. I made a spelling mistake. Planning. So planning is prefrontal cortex and motor cortex. Signal transmission. It gives it back to the muscle, motor neurons. So there's another complex process by which the motor neurons pass it through the muscles. This is neuromuscular junction. This is another process with many chemicals and many. It's a very complex biochemical process. And motor coordination, like to manage uh, all of your motor movements, the cerebellum. So when you have alcohol, that is the thing that's affected, which is why a lot of motor movements are like, what would you say, like they are affected when you have too much alcohol because that affects the cerebellum. Okay, now Parkinson's, as I said, it's the death or the damage. Again, this is what neurodegeneration is. It's the death and the damage of nerve cells or neurons. So this specifically the substantia nigra region. So cells normally produce dopamine. So this is a chemical which is responsible for the brain reward system. It is why motivation is it is the main reason behind motivation. So yeah, it's a crucial chemical. It's also a crucial chemical messenger that coordinates movement. So when these cells which produce dopamine are killed, there's very low levels of dopamine, and the brain cannot control movements properly. So this leads to tremors. So Parkinson's is also a neurodegenerative disorder, but it's also a motor movement disorder. It affects movement. So Parkinson's symptoms can be reduced by DBS technology. So I'll come back to this. I'll come back to DBS. It stands for deep brain stimulation. So few symptoms, obviously tremors. It affects a lot of motor movements. So slight shaking, slowed movement. Again, this affects motor. So basically, like it takes time to get up from a chair, like kind of muscle stiffness. That's another symptom that can occur. So basically, motion and movement is quite reduced. So again, preventive measures would be exercise daily, swimming, running, or cycling. healthy diet, uh, yeah, and caffeine consumption. So basically, caffeine is present in coffee and tea. So yeah, this is like studies suggest that this is like more caffeine is like linked to developing Parkinson. Okay, now I'll come back to the deep brain stimulation. So this is a technology. As I said, there is no cure for these diseases, but this is a technology which reduces the symptoms, which reduces the tremors. Basically, the electrode. So from this internal pulse generator, it's kind of a battery which will provide electrical signals, and these electrical signals. So this electrode, sorry, it's a wire that's connected to specific parts of the brain, and basically, so some obviously the brain function is there's a decline in it because of the loss of dopamine producing neurons. But so these electrodes will provide the electrical signal to the parts that are affected by Parkinson's. So obviously, and they'll get this from the battery. And this is it's quite a safe surgery. You need surgery for this. Um, what do you, it's quite safe, and you can also remove it out. And like it's not always giving the electrical impulse. Basically, you can turn it on and off. So this is a very what do you say emerging field, like uh, in engineering, so basically in electronic medical devices, quite a emerging field, high in demand, because medications when they stop working, these are the kind of devices that need to be like implemented. So yeah, now let's go to neuromuscular diseases. So a few of them are uh, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, progressive degeneration of motor neurons. This is also a neurodegenerative disease as well. So motor neurons in the brain and spinal cord leading to loss of muscle control, like paralysis. Muscular dystrophy is a genetic disease. This also disrupts protein needed to build and maintain healthy muscle tissue. Myasthenia gravis, autoimmune disorder. Basically, autoimmune disorder is basically when the immune system, like it attacks the body. Like, yeah, where the immune system mistakenly attacks receptors at the neuromuscular junction. As I explained, like very complex process between the motor neurons and the muscles, like the junction between them. This is how the signal is passed, and like you flex and like you move your muscles. Yeah. So blocking signals from these nerves to muscles. So again, yeah, there's loss of communication between this. So this affects the again motor movements. And yeah, peripheral neuropathy and spinal muscular atrophy and other diseases that are neuromuscular diseases. Yeah. So ALS, it's the most prominent one. So muscle muscle weakness, sudden or progressive weakness, typically starting in the hand, foot, or as I said, like there's degeneration of the motor neurons, other like twitching, cramping, slurred speech. Like again, you need muscles to move your mouth, like your vocal cords, right? Difficulty swallowing. Again, these are all muscular movements. They're not specifically like muscles in your hands, but like anything that like moves in your body. Like it's very like affect like small things. Like it's quite yeah, it's quite okay. So now preventive measures. So avoid environmental toxins. So this is again caused by chemicals. So yeah, agricultural pesticides, industrial chemicals. Always exercise and healthy diet is like it's always the reason why not following this diseases happen. So yeah, that's like goes without saying. Avoid smoking. Yeah. So smoking again, chemicals are there in smoking. So in cigarettes, yeah, there are chemicals which can increase the risk of ALS. And yeah, manage physical trauma, injuries again, which can affect the nervous system. So brain computer interfaces. So does anyone know what that is? Okay, so basically it is a brain computer interfaces are like the communications between, like if your nervous system is not functioning, you need external devices and external technologies to like it will bypass like the body. Like let's say like your body is like the nervous system is like a circuit. Now if you add an external device to it, so like your user interface, it's like so how does this explain it? Like a high tech fitness tracker. So it plays directly in the brain. So it's used for like people who cannot like perform like tasks, like they're paralyzed, like they cannot use their hands, like they're sitting in a wheelchair. They cannot even move their mouth, as I said. Like it affects speaking, it affects like movement. So you can't walk, you can't speak. So the only way of communicating is through an external device. So the signal goes to the external device, and that's how you communicate. So this is like a diagram. This shows like this is ALS patient sitting in a wheelchair. They cannot talk, nor can they can't even move. So if you've seen something like this, has anyone seen Stephen Hawking? So this is what a type of device that he used, because I mean, he couldn't speak and he was also paralyzed in a wheel. So ALF, yeah. So again, you will receive the electrical signals and so a tablet. So that's how we communicate with other people. So whatever you think, that signal will be transmitted instead of like to the parts of your body, like your muscle. Instead, it will be transmitted to this tablet, and that will receive the signals, that will process it, and that will like give an output. So you have very interactive tablets, like they will show, like if you're writing something, like they will show the text that you're writing. Like if you're thinking like I want a coffee, or like I want something, like it will be written in text on this tablet in that way. So it's another emerging field in like technology and in medical devices, which helps. Again, this is also not a cure. It is just an innovative solution to this disease. Yeah, and another one, muscular dystrophy. So what is muscular dystrophy again? It's caused by genetic mutation. Some muscle weakness. Obviously, again, it's a neuromuscular disease. Frequent falls. So it's very weak. They're very weak muscles. So you trip and you fall quite often. So enlarged calves. So calf muscles are looking usually large. This is not because of muscle, but because a lot of fat replaces the muscle. And walking changes. Obviously, your muscles are weak, so they cannot support like movement. Okay. So again, muscular dystrophy, like all the others, it cannot be like no. This is the one that cannot be fully prevented because it's a genetic disease, right? Genetic conditions you cannot prevent them, but what you can do is manage the progression, protect. Yeah, you can manage the progression. Again, there are other innovative solutions to this, and also protect it. Like it's again progressive, right? So the symptoms keep progressing. So you could stop, like make them reduce, like how in Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, you could limit them and like keep them from like rapidly getting worse. Okay. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone? Okay, then if no one has any questions, we'll end the session here. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Ayaan. Thank you, Arsha. And thank you, Yash, for your presentations. You all can
Thank
also
you.
leave. Thank you.